brought to you by Oriolelure.com. Today, we're going to share a biography of a prominent American entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist with a terrific career in the development of software for personal computers. He is Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft Corporation, one of the most recognized brands in the computer industry. Nearly every computer has at least one Microsoft product installed. His life story reminds an American dream. Due to the hard work, he has achieved not only the prosperity of the company, but also the title of one of the richest people on earth. Gates has been number one for many years on the Bloomberg Billionaires List, but Carlos Slim Helu took number one spot in 2010. And in May 2013, with a fortune of $72 billion, Bill Gates became the richest man on the planet again and retook the world's richest title from Carlos Slim. Bill Gates' net worth was $79.3 billion as of April 9, 2015. Now in 2019, Bill Gates is the second richest man on earth with a net worth of $91.9 billion. Gates and Paul Allen co-founded Microsoft, which is the number one software company in the world. In 2015, the revenue was $93.6 billion. He was the CEO of Microsoft until January 2000. Currently, he is the technology advisor to CEO Satya Nadella. He focuses a lot of his time on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That is why he has taken a less demanding role at Microsoft, so that he can focus more on philanthropy. Bill Gates was born in Seattle, Washington on the 28th of October 1955 in a fairly wealthy family of William Henry Bill Gates, a successful attorney, and Mary Maxwell Gates, a former school teacher who later became a member of the board of directors of the First Interstate Bank. He has one older sister, Christy Gates, and one younger sister, Libby Gates. Being a child, Bill Gates already possessed prospective businessman talent, especially in mathematics. It is not accidental that, at school, he scored 800 points in the mathematical part of the intelligence test, showing the best results. However, the family expected Bill Gates to follow his father's steps and enter Harvard Law School. In 1968, at the age of 13, when Bill and his high school friend Paul Allen went to middle school, the school administrator decided to buy a computer type from the General Electric Company. At that time, the system based on DEC PDP-10 microarchitecture was a basis on the market. Later, he said, "When I was 13, my school installed a teletype machine. From that point on, my friends and I spent most of our free time writing programs and figuring out how to make the computer to do interesting things." The school administration had underestimated its students. The whole year of the computer time was used in a few weeks. Fortunately, a new student arrived in Lakeside, whose father worked as a senior programmer in Computer Center Corporation. The new contract allowed Gates and his friends to continue their experiments. Young hackers quickly figured out the intricacies of the machine, found the weaknesses, and started causing trouble. They broke the defenses, which on several occasions led to a system failure, and changed the files that contained records of computer time. CCC noticed that breach and set them aside from working with computers for a few weeks. Meanwhile, the computers business began to suffer from constant failure and poor protection. Remembering the destructive activities of computer users from Lakeside, CCC invited Bill Gates and his friends to identify flaws and security holes. As a payment, the company offered endless computer time for young hackers. Sure thing, Bill and his friends could not refuse. Since that day, boys couldn't say if it was a day or night outside. They were hanging out in the lab all the time. For instance, one project of Gates was a program for scheduling classes. Somehow, it constantly redefined Bill to the classes with the prettiest girls. In addition to troubleshooting, they studied each material on automatic calculations and improved their skills. In 1969, the Computer Center Corporation experienced difficulties once again, and in 1970, it declared itself a bankrupt. The Lakeside students lost their job and access to computer time. Paul Allen's father was working at the University of Washington and had an access to the computer center. Young programmers got down to business looking for an area where to apply their knowledge. In 1971, the information sciences hired Bill Gates and Paul Allen to create software that would make up payroll sheet. In addition to unlimited computer time, employers have agreed to pay the developers every time their software will bring the company profit. The young programmers regularly received orders. Bill Gates was the initiator who said, "Let's call the real world and sell it something." And the most interesting thing that he did find clients and sold them his software. For example, once he developed software to optimize road traffic and sold it for $20,000. He was only 15 years old at that time. Bill Gates' parents were extremely frightened of the enthusiasm of their son, and by a willful decision, they banned him from computer projects. For a year, Bill did not approach the object of his passion, reading the biographies of famous people from Napoleon to Roosevelt. By the age of 17, Gates received a proposal for writing a software package for Bonneville Dam, which his parents did not reject. For a one-year work on this project, Gates received $30,000. In 1973, Bill Gates entered Harvard University intending either to follow the footsteps of his father or to become a professor of mathematics. Later, Bill admitted that his heart wasn't in it. Most of his time is spent at Harvard. He was playing pinball, bridge, or poker. Paul Allen often visited him on weekends, and they were debating about the prospects of opening their own company. One day, Paul got a job in Honeywell, a company in Boston, and learned about the Altair 8800 personal computer. In 1975, Gates read an article in the January of Popular Electronics that demonstrated the Altair 8800. Gates contacted MITS, the creators of the new microcomputer, to inform them that he and others were working on a basic interpreter for the platform. Gates and Allen did not have any written code. They wanted to gauge the interest of MITS. They met with the MITS president and had developed an Altair emulator within a few weeks to demonstrate on microcomputer and then the basic interpreter. The demonstration was successful, which led on to a deal with MITS to distribute the interpreter as Altair Basic. Paul Allen was hired into MITS, and Gates took a leave of absence from Harvard to work with Allen in November 1975. They named their partnership Microsoft. A year later, the hyphen was dropped, and on 26th of November 1976, the trade name Microsoft was registered. Despite of the hard work of its employees, the company at first experienced some difficulties with distribution of any software products. The company did not have enough money to hire a good sales manager, so this function was performed by Bill Gates' mother, Mary Maxwell Gates. Early next year, Gates and Allen found out that the income of the company has dropped to the lowest affordable point. Its main reason was so-called piracy, illegal copying of software and the use of it without permission of the creator. Many people simply copied the MS Basic and handed it to someone else. Realizing this, Bill Gates was furious, especially because piracy was depriving him from the well-earned income. In addition, these copies contained some mistakes, which he wanted to reduce before the formal release of MS Basic. Gates wrote an open letter in February 1976, which was published in a newsletter for Altair users. In response, the Gates Foundation has received 300 letters, but only a few of them contained a check. Bill Gates was the very first to state the need in a production of the software. His actions have made an incredible contribution to the gradual introduction of the thought that a computer program is a product of creativity and therefore must be protected in the same way as a musical composition or a literary work. In 1976, it became obvious that Bill Gates could not continue his studies and manage a growing company at the same time. In December, he left the university despite of all the objections of his parents and fully engaged with the business. At that time, he was only 21. Then the young businessman got a lucky strike, and the profit of Microsoft sales reached $500,000 for the 1977 financial year. The company, based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, had a staff of 30 people. Paul Allen and Gates were engaged in organizational issues. Paul was responsible for the development of a new software, and Bill communicated with the computer manufacturers. and rein daily operations of the company. In 1979, Bill received an offer from IBM to create an operating system for the world's first personal computer. IBM approached Microsoft to write a basic interpreter for the new IBM PC. Gates referred them to Digital Research as the required an operating system, but the discussion did not go well. So, IBM representatives spoke with Gates around the discussions, and he proposed using 86 DOS owned by SCP, an operating system similar to hardware, similar to the PC. However, Bill Gates was forced to deny the proposal of IBM as he did not have any draft for creating OS at that moment. Therefore, the CEO of Microsoft was forced to recommend IBM to seek help from its competitor Digital Research, which later will be the developer of the OS for IBM personal computer. Microsoft made a deal with SCP to become the exclusive licensing agent, and later the full owner of 86 DOS. After adapting the operating system for the PC, Microsoft delivered it to IBM as PC-DOS in exchange of one-time fee of $50,000. Bill Gates' company greatly refined 86 DOS, and soon the world saw MS-DOS, which Microsoft offered to use the main OS for IBM personal computer, thus beating Digital Research. In September 1980, IBM signed a detailed contract with Microsoft. This contract was destined to change the history of the personal computer industry. Both IBM and Microsoft benefited from it. Gates' main competitor Digital Research changed the course of business, and they were no longer involved in the competition. In 1981, Microsoft becomes a corporation, the management of which is shared between Bill Gates and Paul Allen. In the same year, IBM introduced its personal computer with 60-bit operating system MS-DOS. In addition, the IBM PC includes other Microsoft products such as BASIC, COBOL, Pascal, and others. The sales of MS-DOS made Microsoft a major player in the industry. Despite IBM's name on the operating system, the press quickly identified Microsoft as being very influential on the new computer. The computer was called by an expert in the industry as Gates' computer. The company was restructured on the 25th of June 1981. Gates became the president and board chairman. From Bill Gates' biography, we learned that in 1982, Gates convinced IBM management that MS-DOS should be sold under the license at other computer manufacturers, thereby making the competition of Apple, which was selling its computer based on its own operating system. In 1983, the Microsoft Hardware Group creates a manipulator called Mouse for an easy data input into a computer with a graphical user interface. In the same year, the corporation presents a text editor for MS-DOS. In addition to all of this, the company of Bill Gates announced Windows, the extension of the operating system for MS-DOS, as a universal operating environment for graphical applications. In 1986, Microsoft entered the IPO market, and during just one day, one share cost grew up from $22 to $28. It goes without saying that since this then, Microsoft started to dominate an entire industry. It owned about 44% of all profit software market. It also kept other companies from growing. In 1991, Mitch Kapur, the foundation of Lotus Development Corporation, declared in his interview, "The revolution is over and the free-wheeling innovation in the software industry has gone to a halt. For me, it's the kingdom of the dead." The statement is confined by the fact that in 1993, the number of registered users of Microsoft Windows reached 25 million people. Thus, Windows becomes the most popular operating system in the world with a graphical interface. Microsoft also released Windows NT, a number of operating systems designed for workstations and servers. 2 years later, the Microsoft Corporation deployed Windows 95. The excitement about its sale was so great that, in a line to a store, one could find even people who did not have a computer. Just in 1 year, 25 million copies of Windows 95 were sold. In 1996 to 1997, the company launched the next generation of Microsoft Windows NT 4.0 and 5.0, which was significantly modified compared to the first version of the software. In 1998, brand new Windows 98 seized the world. There were not too many changes made, with the exception of improved internal functions. Then Microsoft creates Windows 2000. Later, it's going to be called the best corporate operating system. Codenamed Longhorn in the early development stages, Windows Vista was released on January 30, 2007. It had the strongest security system ever and a matching Office suite to Microsoft Office 2007. Windows 7 was built for the wireless world, which arose in the late 2000s. By the time of its release, laptops were outselling desktops, and it had become common to connect to public wireless network in coffee shops and a private one at home. In 2012, Windows 8 introduced major changes to the operating system's platform in order to improve its user experience on tablets, where Windows was now competing with mobile operating systems, including Android and iOS. In particular, these changes included a touch-optimized Windows shell based on Microsoft Metro design, the Start, and the other innovations. Windows 8.1 was released a year later. It addresses some aspects of Windows 8 which were criticized by the users and reviewers. In one interview, Bill Gates told that he was very proud of Windows 8 operating system. Windows 10 was released in July 2015. It includes Edge browser, the new Microsoft browser that substitutes Internet Explorer. Windows 10 will be the free upgrade for Windows 7 and Windows 8.1. Though IBM and Microsoft developed the first version of the new system successfully, their partnership deteriorated due to creative differences. Microsoft has been growing ever since. The software and hardware products have been expanding from Windows OS, Microsoft Office Suite, Office 365, Xbox, Bing, Hotmail, the list goes on. It all began with the first idea, and then they built upon that. Since 1975, Microsoft has had a domination over the software market. Windows software is used in most companies. They have consistently kept up with the pace of change, and that is why they remain the number one software company in the world. In early January 2008, during the opening ceremony of the Consumer Electronics Show, Bill said that by the beginning of July he is going to leave Microsoft. He announced that from now he is putting all his efforts into Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which main objective is to support projects in education and healthcare. Since the end of June 2008, Gates has retired from an active management at Microsoft. He gave his authority to Steve Ballmer, at the same time extending a zone of responsibility for Craig Mundy and Ray Ozzie. This trio now determines the course of the company. Despite of this, Bill Gates is still a chairman of the board of directors but non-executive, and remains the largest shareholder with 6.4% of the common stock. On February 4, 2014, Bill Gates decided to resign as the chairman of the board and will work directly with the new CEO Satya Nadella as an investor on technology. Thus, Gates will directly affect the operation of Microsoft, but at the same time is deprived of the post of the chairman, which he held since 1981. One of the most important qualities of Bill Gates is his ability to recognize a truly talented person. "I don't hire fools," he said once. Sometimes Gates himself conducted interviews for a vacant position, and if necessary, called and tried to persuade a candidate he favored. Despite of the fact that Bill Gates really appreciates his own time, he also realizes that the most important thing in business is intellectual capital. His team consists of the best minds, the strongest programmers of the world. In a language of management, Bill Gates is the first capitalist of intellectual property. Bill Gates' life story will long be studied as a good example of a great business. He desires to head the top of the list, no matter what it takes paid off. The dominance in the global market of computer industry for a few decades is not that easy to achieve. As of April 9, 2015, Microsoft Windows operating system market share reached 91.2%, which confirms the success of the Microsoft company. However, Bill Gates seems to be indifferent to these numbers. Success is a bad teacher. It makes smart people think that they can't lose. Another personality trait of this man is pragmatism in everything. Work, work, and work again. This is the core idea of Bill Gates. Rest is considered to be a sign of weakness, so he works hard every day. He says that there is no time for hesitation, as the value of what you have achieved very quickly comes to zero. And in the world of computers, it is the most noticeable. They say that if you mastered a new program, it means that it is already outdated. If it's true at the user's level, what would it be for the creators? Bill Gates has got recognition all around the world for his accomplishments. In 2007, Gates became an honorable trustee of Peking University. Also, while being a student, Gates got inspired of the philanthropic work of John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. In 2000, Gates together with his wife Melina, founded Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to support low-income countries. In 2005, Queen Elizabeth II appointed Bill Gates an honorary Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and he could use the post-nominal letters KBE after his name. In November 2006, the Mexican government awarded Bill Gates and his wife Melinda Gates with the Order of Aztec Eagle for their philanthropic contribution in the world's development, especially in the health and education spheres. Time magazine named Bill Gates on the 100 persons who most influenced the world in the 20th century. Additionally, Time magazine named Gates, his wife Melina, and the U2's lead singer Bono as the persons of the year of 2005. The Franklin Institute awarded Gates with 2010 Bower Award for business leadership for his accomplishment at Microsoft Corporation and his philanthropic work. On January 5, 2015, Bill Gates presented an ingenious machine called Omniprocessor that turns feces into clean drinking water. This installation will help 2.5 billion people in the world suffering from a shortage of drinking water. It was developed by Janicki Engineer Company that is headed by CEO Peter Janicki and funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The Omniprocessors can be a great win-win investment for small and middle-class entrepreneurs in the developing countries. Entrepreneurs who invest into the machine will get paid for the input, sludge, and that same entrepreneurs will get paid for the outputs, electricity, water, and ash. Later this year, it is going to be set up in Dakar, Senegal as the pilot project. Bill Gates noted that the Omniprocessor could handle water from 100,000 people, producing up to 86,000 liters of drinking water per day, and a net 250 kilowatt of electricity.